Hello, fellow detectives. Welcome to Unlocked, the official podcast for all things Nancy Drew by Her Interactive. I am your host, Tammy Tuckey, and this week we welcome voiceover artist Shiromi Arserio to the show. Welcome.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you.
It's great to have you on the show. I'm very, it was one of those games, the Shattered Medallion, which is what we're going to be speaking about today. And I do want to give our listeners a way heads up that there will be spoilers talked about in this episode in particular. But the Shattered Medallion, I feel like, is one of those unique Nancy Drew games in the main series. So I'm so excited to be talking with you about it today. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Now, are you primarily just in the voiceover industry at this point, or were you originally into theater and also film work and television work before you jumped into voiceover?
Yeah, I started out mostly on stage. I have a degree in theater, so I did a lot of stage work and, a little bit of background work on TV and in film. But yeah, at this point now, I've been doing voiceover only for the last few years. I get the chance to play all kinds of characters that I would never get cast, as, on stage or in film. Carrie, for one thing. I do a lot of audiobooks where I get to play a whole cast of characters, sometimes 30, 50 characters. I did a series, it just finished, called The Ministry of Curiosity, set in Victorian England, and it's sort of a gas lamp fantasy, so it's got some supernatural elements, magic in it. And yeah, I would never have gotten cast in something like that. But my first role in voiceover was for a video game called The Swapper, and I got to be like the I think the second in command of a rescue team and a space rescue team. You don't get to do that.
No, not at all. Like usually, and especially for a female lead too. So it's a mixture of that. You know what I mean? Race and female leads. Where are you going to find that?
Absolutely.
Which is why, I think that a lot of people, especially women, identify with the Nancy Drew games and the books, right? Did you read any of them growing up, the books at least, or did you play any of the games before being cast?
I didn't. I'm from England. I was born and raised in England, and it just, it wasn't something that came my way growing up. It's strange because I'd always kind of heard of it. It's just that's how popular Nancy Drew is. When you read about or watch something on TV and they talk about a young female detective, inevitably there's a Nancy Drew comparison. But, being from England, it just wasn't something that I came across, which is a shame because I think I would have liked these books growing up.
With this game in particular, was this one of the first voiceover roles you got, or was this something that came a little bit after you started really delving into that industry?
It was amongst the first voiceover roles. So when I first started in voiceover, I kind of fell into it. A friend of mine wanted me to replace. He needed somebody to replace a voice in a documentary that he was doing the audio for. Said, "Do I want to give it a shot?" So I did, and they liked me, and they kept having me come back. So I was recording stuff for a while, but it was just for that one client. It wasn't something that I was taking seriously. And then eventually, after a few years, I was like, I really like this. I'd like to do more of it. So I started taking classes and, put together a studio and got a demo. And I booked The Swapper, which was my first video game, shortly after I cut my first demo. And then I think 6 months later, I booked Nancy Drew. So, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. When did you, how did you hear about the audition? Was it in person or was it just a submission you emailed them?
That was actually listed on a Seattle local actors website. And yeah, it said it was for Nancy Drew, and they needed a lot of different voices, but specifically they needed New Zealand voices. So I sent them. I've got a good ear for accents anyway. So I just sent them an email with a link to my demo, and told them I had a good ear for accents, and said that I'd spent a little bit of time in New Zealand, and they called me in to audition, which was in itself pretty unusual, I have to say.
And what did they ask you to do in particular? Because I guess they wanted to get a feel for like what type of thing you like voice you were going to go for, I guess. Like, did they give you like Kiri's sides so that you could read them, or were there other individuals that they gave you to read?
So for the audition, or before the audition, they sent me a few lines with Kiri's lines on it. Although I want to say that I saw other characters on there, but I specifically was auditioning for Kiri, although I didn't know anything about her at the time. And then when I went in there, I met with Nick, who's the head writer for Shattered Medallion, and he told me a little bit more about her. And so I just went with it, even though Kiri is so far from me as a person, being that she's a reality TV star and whatnot. And yeah, they liked me, so they asked me to come in and actually, record in the studio with them. And then I got a few more pages. I got most of the script at that point, but I still didn't actually know just how crazy Kiri was.
That's going to lead me into my next couple of questions. But the setup to this game in particular is unusual because we finally get to meet Sunny. I don't know if you've played the other games, but there is this character that always seemed to be at a place or the location before Nancy got there and would leave behind, chocolate bars and little notes and doodles. And we finally get to meet him in the game. So that was unusual in and of itself. And then the game was structured as if it was a reality TV show, which for us Americans, we get to see all the time. So that was really interesting too, because I remember starting to play it and I'm like, is this Nancy Drew? Like, this is different, but I really like it. Like, I wasn't expecting that. So when they kind of pitched the idea to you, did you know in the beginning that you were going to be the culprit?
Nope.
Oh, so you had no idea. And like, when did they finally reveal that to you then?
It wasn't until I was actually in the studio. They gave me the rest of the pages for the script, and I'm looking at it thinking, whoa, this actually looks like maybe I am going to be the bad guy. And then they actually told me, you're actually going to be the culprit, right? I was like, oh, really?
Who did you originally think it was going to be?
The pages were all jumbled up, so there were different characters. So I had no idea. And I didn't see everything that was in the script. Mm-hmm. So I only had my lines for the most part. So I had no idea who I thought the culprit was going to be. I played her. When I was rehearsing, I was imagining in my head that she was the culprit, because I feel like that's a good angle to take for when you've got multiple culprits. But I didn't actually think, I figured they'd told me if I was actually the culprit. So it was a nice surprise, but at the same time, I'd already been working on that in my head, so it wasn't too hard a mental shift to go, okay, so she is the culprit.
She's very driven, because when I remember playing the game, I was like, I can't really read her, and I would never have guessed her because she was so set on becoming famous and winning the game. You know what I mean? And I just thought I was like, oh yeah, well, I don't think it's her. I was like, but who could it be? Like, it was just a question I kept running in my head, but it was so interesting how you played it, because it seemed, so set forth. And then at the end of the game, usually our villains take a crazy turn, but yours is like, you're like casually like, yeah, sorry, you're going to probably die. And Sunny's like, hey, how are you doing, Kiri? And you're like, hey, like, it was just like a casual way of communicating. It was really funny. And I was like, I don't know. I'm so confused. I was like, I can't believe it's her. How was it like doing that final reading then?
Oh gosh. It was really fun. That scene in particular was really fun. Oh, hey, Sonny. After just being completely crazy to Nancy and telling her, "Oh, you're gonna die." Just like, "Hey, Sonny, what's up?" Um, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think, in Carrie's head, she's like he said, she's driven.
Yeah. Oh,
And
absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
and nobody thinks that they're the villain. And in her head, she's not the villain. There's very specific reasons in her head why she does the things that she does.
She wants to win the game. I guess
Right.
Nancy was like really close. She's like, no, this is not going to happen. I planned this to a T. So, with that whole thing, have you ever wanted to be in a reality TV show, like one of those, maybe not Big Brother, but probably one of the more physically active ones, like Survivor? Have you ever watched them and be like, it would
Yeah.
be interesting to give it a shot?
Honestly, no, not at all. I don't watch reality TV. I mean, I like the physical aspects. I've seen clips of those types of shows, like what they were doing in Shattered Medallion. So, I'd like to do the stuff that they were doing, but the reality aspect, the reality television aspect is completely beyond me. In fact, in the studio, there was a line in the script for some dialogue that she was saying, and it said like confessional. I was like, what does that mean? They had to explain it to me. Like, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about now, but I didn't have a clue what the term was.
When you finally got your hands on the game, did you play it, or did you watch like other fans play it online just to get a sense of like how it turned out?
I watched the Let's Plays, yeah.
You did. What did
Yeah.
you think when you finally heard your voice?
Oh, it was hmm. Um I mean, I liked Carrie, what I did with Carrie as a character. I'll be honest, the accent wasn't as great as it could have been. And I know why. I think I pretty much felt that way in the studio too, because uh, so like I'm pretty comfortable doing an Australian accent. An Australian accent's very broad. It's very very loose in your jaw, and but a New Zealand accent's just a little bit more closed off, a little bit more. The jaw's held a little bit more tightly closed. Um, but as I was playing Carrie, she's such a big character and pretty crazy. And I just kept getting bigger and bigger. And so I felt like I let the accent go a bit. And I do apologize for that to our Kiwi players.
And have you been to New Zealand before? Have you ever experienced that country?
I have, as a matter of fact, not for very long. I think we were there for a week and we did both the North Island and the South Island, which I don't recommend because it's too much to do in such a short time. But it is so beautiful there.
I see the pictures and I'm like, oh, I'd love to go there. I see Lord of the Rings. I'm like, oh, I want to go to Hobbiton, do the stereotypical stuff. But I really would love to like get to know the community and stuff. So you didn't really get to, sink your teeth into that type of atmosphere with the people because you weren't there for that long, or?
Yeah, we just, I mean, we like Christchurch. We were in Christchurch for maybe 12 hours overnight while running around to other parts of the island. I mean, we saw some really great things. We met, great people, and I have friends there, so I'd like to go out there and actually spend just a little bit of time there. What I saw of it, I really liked. I love what I've met of the people. I think they're very environmentally conscious and just very open. Yeah, I mean, it's a really great place that I would really like to go back to.
Now, what have you been doing since the game? I know you've been doing a lot of other projects, but our listeners would love an update. So, what are the latest things you've been working on? And if you want to mention your website or any social media pages, please go ahead.
Let's see. Video game wise, I recently recorded some audio. I played two different characters in a game called Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, which is a historical role-playing game set in the Roman Empire era. And as I said, I do a lot of audiobooks. I've done about 70 of them. So pretty much just look me up, Shiromi Arserio, on Audible, and you can see almost all of my work. Yeah, that's pretty me. Like I said, I do a lot of audiobooks. That's the vast majority of my work nowadays. And social media, I'm not as up to date as I'd like to be. I think I update pretty frequently on Instagram, which is shiromi.arserio. You can also find me on Twitter at Girl in Blue Box, and also on Facebook, Shiromi Arserio audiobook narrator.
Thank you so much for being on the show. My final question is, if you could describe your experience working with Her Interactive and being a part of the Nancy Drew universe using one word, what would it be?
Legacy is the word that springs to mind, because it's been such a huge part of so many generations of women, both readers and video game players. So for me, this girl from England, to have this, be able to be part of this world, I mean, I feel really humbled.